All right, guys, we got major realignment intel. Things are finally starting to materialize and happen, and there are some crazy rumors out there from very reputable sources, so let's get right into it. First, starting to get a few reports from Colorado's meeting. Now, this was the meeting that Colorado had last night. Cannot confirm yet if they decided to officially seek out Big 12 membership, but I did get a nice tidbit of claims being made that Washington and Oregon are holding the entire conference hostage right now. Oh my goodness. Colorado very unhappy with unequal revenue sharing. Looks like it's the only way Washington and Oregon are agreeing to stay in the conference and not entertain offers from the Big 12 or the ACC. So obviously major stuff there. Prior to this, we had no knowledge and no intel of the ACC potentially making a play for Oregon and Washington, but it seems like Oregon and Washington are pissed. They originally wanted in the Big Ten. They're realizing right now, even if the Big Ten expands to 18 teams in the coming years, those two teams will not be Oregon and Washington. So Oregon and Washington, they're either saying we're going to the ACC or the Big 12, or you're going to have to give us unequal revenue, which means they get more money, and a team like Colorado or a team like California gets less. I think this unequal revenue sharing is going to be a normal thing in the future. The idea of, some of these teams in the same conference making the same when one team is clearly more valuable just doesn't make any sense. So right now, Colorado and Oregon, Washington and Oregon holding the Pac-12 hostage. They're pissed. They're loose cannons. Could they join the ACC? That's the first time we're hearing that. Or could they join the Big 12? It'll be interesting. It says Colorado doesn't even know where Cal and Stanford truly stand and what their real plan is, because so far communication has been lackluster with them. Colorado feels like they are on an island and being pushed out. So, we heard the rumors yesterday. Colorado and Arizona possibly getting a formal offer from the Big 12 Conference to join in the first week of August, guys. The first week of August, and Colorado right now, they seem pissed. They're not happy with the situation. Stanford and California, what options do Stanford and California really have at this point? Especially California. At least Stanford might have an in with the Big Ten if they take Notre Dame. To make it more appealing to Notre Dame, they could also take Stanford, kind of similar in terms of academics. There's also been a rumor going around. I forgot to touch on this tweet, the rumor of Stanford possibly going independent, which has kind of been circulating for a while now. If the Pac-12 completely breaks down, Stanford could become an independent in that scenario. Or, would they join the Mountain West? Would an institution like Stanford join? I can't see that personally. The ACC made a play for Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and California and was shot down. No proof of it, but Colorado AD said it has been implied. So this is major gossip. We've got Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and Cal being targeted by the ACC. We've always wondered. We know the Big Ten and the SEC are the two super conferences right now, or the mega conferences. I don't think they're super conferences yet. They got to get to 18 teams first. They're the two big boys. Who's that number 3? The ACC, even though they have a horrible media deal, is trying to acquire Washington, Oregon, Stanford, and California. Oh my goodness. Hearing that the Pac-12 is going to invite 2 schools. Okay, this is big. The Pac-12 is inviting 2 schools to replace USC and UCLA. ESPN changing course on additions and wants the Pac to act quickly. San Diego State is for sure getting invited to the Pac-12, and then either Fresno State or SMU for the second team. So this is major intel on the Pac-12's future moves. With the two teams leaving, they want to replace those teams. Of course, the waters only get more muddled if Colorado and Arizona also leave for the Big 12. But right now, you're looking at a Pac-12 with 10 teams looking to get back to 12 teams with the additions. Looks like they're inviting San Diego State and then either Fresno State or SMU. Now, I'm not going to speculate on which one of those two gets invited between Fresno State or SMU. There's pros and cons with both. I will not speculate on that. But this is a major source right here that says San Diego State is for sure going to the Pac-12 as they try and keep their conference together right now. Of course, we heard about that report just a few minutes ago about Washington and Oregon getting so angry and holding the conference hostage, trying to get that unequal revenue sharing. We'll see if that ends up. Really, you gotta wonder, what type of options do Washington and Oregon really have? If you're Washington and Oregon, I said this in my last video, is going to the Big 12 really worth it? Really, in terms of revenue? I still think their best bet is to wait it out and hope the Big Ten and the SEC end up going to 20 teams by 2026, which was a rumor that was actually confirmed when I did a story on this yesterday by this source who did a big article. He was questioned. He said, listen, there's going to be 3 super conferences of 20 teams. So if you've got the Big Ten expanding to 20 teams, you would think either Washington or Oregon would probably be involved in that. And if they're not involved in that, you'd think they would be involved in the SEC's 20-team super conference. There's been just early speculation that the SEC could get a little jealous that the Big Ten has a footprint on the West Coast. And at that point, the SEC could look towards a team like Oregon or Washington to kind of expand their horizons and head out to the West. If the Big Ten gets to 20 teams, there is a situation where the 4 teams they would add would be Notre Dame, Stanford, and then they would take 2 teams from the ACC. We talked about this yesterday. Virginia and North Carolina. Or you could go North Carolina and Duke, right? Because they don't want to split those teams up. So either way, if you're Washington and Oregon, you're not in a good spot. But Washington and Oregon realize right now they have all the leverage. If they leave the Pac-12, the Pac-12 becomes a sub-conference just like that. It kind of already is, but it gets destroyed if Oregon and Washington leave. So they've got all the leverage. That's why they're making these demands. They want more money, unequal revenue sharing, things like that. And this tweet says that the Pac-12 is trying to be proactive. They're saying, we're not going to die. We want to get San Diego State. We want to get Fresno State or SMU. And then we've also got this one here. ESPN also advising the additions will not increase their current TV offer. The Big 12 contract thinks this is ESPN being proactive to get ahead of Arizona and Colorado going to the Big 12 to keep the Pac-12 stabilized. So ESPN's reasoning for this is they're trying to get a TV deal with the Pac-12, and they're looking and they're seeing, sure, you might add San Diego State and SMU or Fresno State, but we see where this is trending. We understand that the teams that are on their way out, possibly as early as the first week of August, the teams on the way out are Arizona and Colorado. And then, let me just explain something really quickly, and I learned this yesterday. The reason the Big 12 might not take the 4 teams that were rumored that I've talked about, Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. The reason they might just take 2 is because if they take 4 teams, they will lose money. They will lose revenue because you would have to dilute your TV contracts with 16 members, as opposed to if they just take Arizona and Colorado, they would actually see a small bump in revenue per team, which would be a 14-team conference. That's how it was explained to me. That's how I understand why, the original rumors that made complete sense. You have the Big Ten at 16 teams. You have the SEC at 16 teams. Get the Big 12 to 16 teams. But they're saying for the revenue, it doesn't make sense. If we add 2 teams, we're going to get a bump. If we add 4 teams, we're going to dilute it. So that's why they might only add the 2 teams. And it's kind of shifting. And the latest reports we've gotten are all centered around Arizona and Colorado the first week of August going to the Big 12. Those are the reports, and at that point, the Pac-12 becomes 8 teams with the idea that they would add 2 from the Mountain West. San Diego State is for sure one, and then another, whether it's SMU. Well, SMU is, I guess, not from the Mountain West, but it would either be SMU or Fresno State as the other team that gets added to the SMU's from the American. So either one of those teams added to the Pac-12, which would then go back up to 10 teams in that situation. And ESPN is saying, listen, we'll negotiate with you, but we realize that you're probably losing 2 teams. You might gain 2 more teams, but ESPN trying to be proactive in the situation because they know Arizona and Colorado are likely on their way out, and they're trying to find replacements. Now, why does ESPN want rights to the Pac-12? Apparently, they want to control the late window, like the 10 o'clock window. At least that's what was told to me a few weeks ago. So that ESPN's looking to get kind of a budget deal with the Pac-12. Fox is not interested at all in the Pac-12. They have an obsession with the Big Ten that I hate because I do not like Fox Big Noon. And I would love to see Fox lose all their rights to every Ohio State game. I would love that. Unfortunately, they're obsessed with Ohio State. They're obsessed with the Big Ten. And they're saying, we're not interested in the Pac-12 at all. We're going to save all of our money for the Big Ten Super Conference. ESPN's going to get the SEC. And then there was a rumor that CBS wanted to do some type of exclusive deal with the Big 12, which would be a deal that included a weeknight game, possibly either Wednesday or Thursday night game, primetime game with the Big 12, where that would be CBS's game of the week. Remember, CBS's deal with the SEC ends, I believe, after this year. So you're still going to see the 3:30 game on CBS with the SEC this year. I actually think Penn State faces Auburn on CBS. That's like the first time Penn State's ever been on CBS. But the CBS is going to have the games. They're getting the Jimbo Saban game at night, like week 7 or whenever it is. And then CBS is done. So they're going to have to go to another conference. And I think what will happen is ESPN will get an even bigger stranglehold over the SEC. And you'll start seeing SEC games on ABC at 7 o'clock at night. That window would go to the SEC, I think. That's how it would work. And then all the Big Ten crap would go to Fox. So we'll see what happens with the situation. Right now, nobody really wants the Pac-12. Only ESPN does for the late night window, but they're trying to be careful, and they're trying to not overbid here because you have to understand there's 2 teams they're going to lose, and then you have the situation with Washington and Oregon. We can't confirm that this is actually happening, but it makes sense. Washington and Oregon, they're losing it. They're pissed. They're saying, listen, we have so much leverage over this conference. We're the only teams that have any sort of value in terms of college football to this conference. If we leave, your conference is screwed. You become basically a better version of the Mountain West. So we're going to take our leverage. And you know what? We want unequal revenue sharing now. We want more money than California. We want more money than, some of these lower tier Pac-12. We want more money than Washington State. Yeah. Nothing against Washington State. I'm just saying that's what they're thinking. And wow, so there's a lot of gossip to take in, guys. We will see what happens. The things that I can tell you right now, San Diego State heading to the Pac-12. Possibly either Fresno State or SMU heading to the Pac-12. Colorado and Arizona heading to the Big 12, and Colorado apparently is pissed. They're not getting info from anyone I just think that has to do with they're just not a very valuable member of the conference. But again, it's not like California is this extremely valued member, but I think California has decent academics. I don't know, guys. I don't know the exact academic situations with many of these Pac-12 schools, but I think California has good academics. So that's why maybe the Big Ten or there was that weird rumor that we just saw the ACC possibly reaching out to California, Stanford, which makes sense. Stanford should be wanted. And then also Oregon and Washington possibly joining there. Apparently that is not happening, but that was a crazy rumor. Either way, guys, I just wanted to talk about the recent intel we've been hearing regarding the realignment situation. We are waiting for the next major domino, which could happen in early August, that first week of August, with the two teams from the Big 12 from the Pac-12 going to the Big 12, and then subsequently the Pac-12 adding San Diego State and either Fresno State or SMU. Those are the next move in terms of conference realignment. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.